Do you know what? It's interesting because it's an uncommon view. I'd say a wholly uncommon view, but it wasn't an unstated view in some of the conversations I've had. So it's not as clear cut as maybe I presumed. But yeah, we'll surface that up at some point during this conversation because obviously this is like wandering into territory that clearly I don't know anything about. So yeah, we'll figure this out as we go. Yeah, excellent stuff. Okay, well, live everybody. Welcome to Brainfood Live on Air, bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. And we are on the home stretch, folks. So I think we have what, 4 more sessions after this until the end of the year. So we've just been tremendously pounding this out. I think we would have done 50 by the end of this year. Which means almost every week that we've done this, which is just fantastic. So thank you everyone for joining, supporting the channel, watching it and commenting, engaging and all the rest of it. It's just been fabulous. And people ask me all the time, where'd you get the energy? I'm sure you get the same stuff, but the reality is these are really good conversations, and you know, it's not something that's tiring to do. You know, there's lots of other busy stuff that I'm tired about, but having chats with the community is not tiresome. It's actually a really great highlight of my week. So thank you everyone for that. Folks, just wanted to do a quick sound check as usual. Want to make sure everyone is on Crowdcast can hear me okay. I've repositioned my mic a little bit as well as the camera just to get a bit of distance and maybe better audio. So let me know whether you can hear me fine okay. Thing is, Mike, everyone says they can hear me fine, but then I do the replay on the podcast. It sounds terrible. So does it sound dulcet? Are the tones kind of is it chocolatey in your ear is what I want you to know. Anyway, we should also be live streaming this in multiple places. Thanks to everyone for restreaming it. So we are live streaming on LinkedIn. If you can see me on LinkedIn, let me know on the comments. I think Adam Gordon, you are also live streaming this on your LinkedIn and Facebook as well. I do believe there's a few other people. Sally, I think you're doing so also, which is fantastic. Okay, we seem to be going well, which is great. Folks, we have to thank our sponsors before we continue the show. As ever, we always have to do this. So today, we are delighted to introduce a debut sponsor for Brainfood Live on Air, and we're very pleased to talk about this, simply because I'm sure you're going to hear loads about it in 2024 anyway. It is Poetry HR, folks, and it's Adam Gordon's new business. So Adam, you might as well tell us a bit about it. What is Poetry HR? Who needs to care about it? Why is it any good?
Yeah, so thank you for that. Thank you for the introduction. The company's the product's actually called Poetry rather than Poetry HR. But anyway, it's a recruiter workspace. It's designed to do 2 things. It's designed to make recruiters better marketers by giving them solutions for managing and creating social media posts, job adverts, email copy, landing page copy, things like that. If you need assistance with it, then it's rammed with generative AI and a pre-built prompt engine, which means you just fill in a couple of fields in a form and it gives you back precisely what you're looking for, or nearly precisely what you're looking for. And then the second thing it's aiming to do is eliminate or considerably reduce the concept of toggle tax, which is the time we all spend going from app to app trying to get our tasks accomplished, trying to remember what is that sourcing tool that interrogates TikTok profiles called again. They're all in the one workspace, so really easy to find it all. Aiming to reduce the burden of administration on creating marketing copy and finding stuff by 31 minutes per day. And it is free for your first admin account at poetryhr.com.
And people can sign up and use it now, is that right? It's like,
yep.
Okay, why don't you share the link in the chat stream there, folks? Get onto it if you want to improve the productivity of your team. And by the way, Adam, we need to sneak Brainfood sort of default subscription into one of the permanent tabs on Poetry. But no, I really like the idea of enablement and efficiency. I totally get the idea of flicking through tabs. I'm looking at 20 tabs as we speak, as we go, and I don't even do recruitment, so I'm sure everyone feels the same way. Okay, so great. Thank you so much for supporting it, Adam. And in fact, We can expect to see some more sponsored stuff from you guys sort of throughout the year, which is great. Okay, let's get on with the show. Let's do a review of the newsletter from last week. Adam, did you read it? And if so, what was interesting, man?
I did read it, and the first thing I wanted to point out was, if ever you let slip that it's actually an AI that's writing it, then it was the way that you were actually quite effusive about me and my qualities at the beginning of the newsletter, because I know that that would not have come out of your fingertips. So
Absolutely not. That was copy and pasta from someone else. That I would never say such things. But yes, indeed.
But on the subject of generative AI, I was really interested to see that you asked subscribers what source of information would be best for creating a recruiting Brainfood custom GPT, and 31%, second highest, was actually recruiting Brainfood Live, the transcripts from. So
Yep.
I was very pleased with that, considering I know absolutely nothing, but the guests are absolutely superb. This is probably the best show about recruiting related things, and the quality of the guests is superb. So I wasn't surprised to hear that. But of course, the larder and the contents of the larder was where this is going to come from. So I'd love to find out if this is something you're actually doing when you're doing it, how you're doing it.
Both those things are going to happen. So the Brainfood Larder, by the way, folks, if you didn't know, is essentially a searchable archive of all of the articles ever published on the Recruiting Brainfood newsletter, which is up to 373, I think, come on Sunday. So we're talking about thousands of articles that have been categorized, searchable, and all the rest of it. I've taken that down because basically the search has really been broken as it's scaled. It hasn't really coped with it. But the obvious solution is to put a GPT in it. So that's what we're doing. And we're going to basically make every file searchable, every comment that I've made searchable, all the tags searchable, and then hopefully we'll get to a point where you can interrogate that and say, can you show me all the reports that intersect DE&I with AI or something like that, and it will aggregate all of those things and just immediately bring those resources to your attention. So hopefully it will be another really useful tool that people can use. And as for the transcripts on Brainfood Live, I do intend to do that, but one of the things that stopped me from doing it particularly is the fact that you and I are on screen, and I want to basically pass us out of it, if that makes any sense. Because as you say, I think you're right, the guests are the ones that actually provide the value. So I'm going to try and transcribe everything, get us out of it. Maybe we can create our own little thing that's just tongue and Adam speaking crap or whatever. That's all great. But then the distillation of the value is from the guests, and I think that would be, a really good thing. If we did 5 lessons learned from, I think that could be a nice little thing to try, and maybe a new channel on. Could be another newsletter. Could be a TikTok. Could be something where I was actually thinking of doing sketch notes on it. You know how sketch artists can actually draw out the argument and start placing various things. So I wonder whether that would be useful, folks. A sketch note artist distillation of Brainfood Live summaries. Every week you might get a sketch note to describe, on this topic, here's the key discussion points. Let me know in the comments if you think that's going to be interesting for you to do. It's probably going to cost me money to do, but happy to spend it because I think it's going to be worth it. There's a lot of information locked into these shows that needs to be extracted and shared with other people. So yeah, that's what you're saying anyway in the community. So thanks for voting on that. Cool.
Okay.
What else, mate?
On the subject of custom GPTs, I really enjoyed reading David Galley's blog, I guess it was, about how he's going about building batch match GPT. So he's just put in there exactly how he's gone about doing it, which is really useful. He's also said, what he now needs to do to refine it. He's got to do a bit of debugging, a bit more detailed rule setting, things like that. He also highlights some of the stubbornness within OpenAI and some of the inconsistency in what it returns. I understand the subject intimately at this point, and it's a really interesting blog. So well worth taking a look, and keep an eye on Batch Match GPT for when it's like industrialized.
Yeah, I mean, basically, David is obviously one of the leading sources in the industry. Trains people for a living on it, and he's deeply technical as well. And this is worth looking at because it gives you an idea of what GPTs can do. And essentially, it's he's been able to use it as an assessment tool, a mass assessment tool, so that you can extract a load of candidate data from whatever system you're using, pipe it into his sort of custom GPT, and then put your job description against that, and the GPT will basically do a match on it, which you would not do as a human being. You'd look at these things and try and make the match, but this thing will actually forensically go through every line, and then it will come out also with the strengths and weaknesses analysis on that point as well. So you can imagine how significant that will be on the recruiting side. It's almost taking away a huge chunk of that CV resume review sort of process. You could do it automatically with a tool like this. So definitely check it out. I don't think he's released it publicly because he's still fiddling around with it. And I wonder whether he might actually, stick it behind a paywall at some point. It sounds like something that, you charge for. But yeah, an example also on what can be achieved with your own custom GPTs. Yeah,
Okay,
cool.
just staying with, I'm sorry if you're bored of generative AI, but just staying with it for a second. Hootsuite's annual social media report has a section about how um, generative AI is likely to grow and in 2024, and remaining at the top of the list is going to be refining text. That has been until now the most common use, but I think it's also very worthwhile looking at what is the highest growing use, what's the highest percentage uplift, and that's in chatbot functionality, building out chatbots, as well as editing images, which came second. So looking at the trends, I would say even just looking at the stats which are in the newsletter before you even click through to the article, it's well worth looking at that.
Yeah, and it's interesting that marketing of all of the functions that are using or in business that are using generative AI, marketing are the ones that are most enthusiastic about the usage, because it's the most one of the most obvious applications is of course media production, and it means that a marketer can times 10 their productivity if they get into it. But the reality is this door is going to be kicked wide open. I think Microsoft released Copilot, I think earlier this week, so or 2 days ago. So that's like, a billion people are suddenly AI enabled. So if you're using Excel, Outlook, Teams, whatever, you have got an AI talking to you. That's going to just be a massive change in terms of how all of us do our work. So it's going to be really interesting. The Hootsuite social trends is essential, I think, for anybody doing marketing, content creation, employer branding. Go ahead and check it out. Okay, I think that's about it, unless you got one more thing you want to talk about, or do you
Yeah,
want to
just
dive straight into this topic?
yeah, no, just one more. Let's switch to sociology for a second. I want to talk about retirement age. I thought that was
Hmm.
really interesting. I like the way that you always include something which is not necessarily recruitment focused, but it is about humans, and of course, it links in with what we do in recruiting. Um, I really enjoyed looking at the variance in the retirement age in different countries, and I noted that if you and I were in Saudi Arabia, I think you would already be able to retire with full benefits, and I'll be able to do it in January.
What is
Age
it,
47.
32 or something?
Age 47. Um,
Wow.
however, however, I did notice also that the average age of exit from the workforce in Saudi Arabia is 59. Um, I also noticed that the highest age, the oldest that people can officially retire is in Israel, Iceland, and another Scandi country. I think it might have been Norway, which was 67,
That's
with
us, isn't
countries
it?
like the UK
UK.
and the USA just 1 year behind.
Yeah, yeah, we work hard here, and it's a long, long period of time, especially as it's getting kicked further down into the distance, isn't it? So anybody watching this, I'm sure some of us will be thinking about retirement, but we're starting to get the message to say, oh, you don't need to retire, or it will never happen, and all this type of stuff. So I thought it would be useful to share where is the starting point, because countries, if they do inch up the retirement age, where it is now, obviously, is going to be a big component of where it's going to end up to be. So I think Visual Capitalist did a very good job of that, just outlining what it is. And there is huge variance. Certain countries seemingly retire really early, and other ones just keep hanging on. And there's also gender variance as well. Some of them are balanced; they have male and female exactly the same age. Other ones, I think, generally speaking, men two years more before retirement across the piece. So again, there's like, why is that? So there's arguments. It's one of these really difficult topics we have to talk about. The ideal case is, I guess, we should be retiring earlier, but then you need to think about, okay, what's the dependency ratio in society? You can't have a society where 50% of the people are supporting 50 other percent of the people. So we've got to do something, and governments are making those decisions. So check that out, worth having a review. Okay, let's dive into this topic because we've got loads of guests to bring onto this. Does your company have a menopause plan? Thank you firstly for Kelly Muller. Kelly's going to join us in a bit, but she's the one that really started this conversation. She actually approached me out of the blue in Islington outside of the IHR conference. We had a really good chat. And we ended up talking about some of the work that Kelly was doing, and it was about menopause awareness and what have you. And it just occurred to me that, firstly, we haven't covered this on Brainfood at all, and it seems not to be a particularly visible topic. And it's kind of strange because, it's obviously a potentially significant life moment for a big percentage of the working population, including what could be a big percentage of the working population that you're managing or your colleagues with or whatever. Having had further conversations with a couple of the friends that we're going to bring on shortly, it became clear to me that not only were women generally not supported with information at a society level. Lots of the people, have to look for the information themselves. But from a company perspective, there seems to be like almost a complete lack of support. And it's like, okay, that's kind of unusual situation. Let's elevate the chat. Let's learn about it, and let's bring it on from there. So that's why we're here. So thanks everyone for watching. Let's bring on our first tranche of guests. There's loads of people on. I think there's 10 people we're going to try and bring on. So it's going to be like ice hockey type swap in, swap out. But let's bring some of our guests on now, and we'll see where we're at. And by the way, before we do that, Adam, from your perspective, any of the companies you work for, has this ever been dialogue internally at all, like menopause? Have we discussed this as a thing, or
No, no, it hasn't. I know not very much about it. However, I'm really supportive of anything where we need accommodations in like the context of recruiting, and we need to discuss them. And people in talent acquisition need to understand them. So it's a important subject. It affects a lot of people, and it's one that we're all better knowing more about.
Yep, I absolutely agree. I know the basics. I think we basically GCSE level biology, right? And obviously, I've got relatives that have gone through this, although even that's taboo in sort of family. But you kind of the internet's available, so you can educate yourself. Oh, good Lord, Claire, you got to sort that out. Okay, let's do some intros firstly. Angela, good to see you. Can you quickly intro yourself? Who are you? What is you do?
Angela Cripps, MD of the Recruiting Gym, trainer and coach for the recruitment industry worldwide, been in recruitment for 34 years.
Okay, great to see you, Angela. Thanks for live streaming this as well. And let me just share the link to your LinkedIn there. Cool. Claire, I've muted you temporarily, but I think you might be okay. Let's bring you back. What am I doing? You got to unmute yourself. Hang on. God damn it. I'll do it here. I've done it. Don't worry. No, I haven't.
Hello?
Can you control this? Yeah, we got it. Okay, Claire, quickly introduce yourself. Who are you? What did you do?
I am a fractional CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. I've been around recruitment for quite a number of years, and I am in my perimenopausal state right now.
Very interesting. And actually, you're another one of those that's actually, we've had that conversation, perhaps not in depth, but yeah, you were very early to talk about this, at least when I was sort of present. So thanks for joining me, us on this conversation as well. We have Kelly as well. Kelly, wonderful to see you. Can you quickly introduce yourself? What did you do? I think, Kelly, you might be possibly muted there.
There we go. Can we hear me?
No?
Good? No?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go
Can
ahead.
you hear?
Sure.
Can you hear?
Can you hear me?
Okay. So hello, Hung. Hello, Adam. Thanks very much. Yes? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Is this bad?
No, it's good.
Good. Well, I'm Kelly, and I am the recruitment manager with Space and Time, and really glad to be here.
Great, and thanks for joining us, Kelly. I'm going to grab your LinkedIn and share. Yeah, I'm probably not. I mean, I'm free. Basically, my internet is a bag of crap. And I've called BT out, but they're not arriving till they said, yeah, we'll come around like Friday afternoon. So listen, I'm live streaming, so we'll have to go with what we've got. So they're coming on Wednesday. Yeah, sorry about that. All right. By the way, Jen and Lou and everyone else who, by the way, is in that list, we're going to bring you on shortly. I just want to make sure we can't bring like loads of people on, otherwise no one's going to be able to speak. So bear with us. We're going to rotate people in and out. Okay, let's talk about this. I think I've had independent conversation with all of you here, but people who are listening have not had this. So I hope you don't mind me just giving you everyone a top level. Everyone on screen we've just brought on, you kind of either going through perimenopause or have gone through it or have gone through menopause. And that experience has caused you to reflect generally on where employers are at when it comes to providing support to people who've gone through it. So I wonder whether we go with you first on this, Kelly. When sort of menopause started happening, can you give us a bit of context, what you're doing and who you're working for, and what sort of things were available to you, and when you kind of noticed some of these changes?
Well, Hung, what I can say is menopause is one of these strange things that kind of sneaks up on you. You know, you don't even realize it's happened until it's there. So I think one of the first strangest, when I noticed something that happened to me, I went, well, that's weird. And the first thing that I noticed was the day that I developed vertigo. I was actually on a I was in Brighton. I was climbing up a very tall number of stairs to get up to the tram that takes you around the beach. And all of a sudden, you know, I froze in absolute fear. And that wasn't like me. And I've always been a very confident recruiter, an eager headhunter, you know, very persuasive, standing up on stage, doing presentations. And one day at work, I was even suddenly too scared to be around people. I started even hiding in meeting rooms, which definitely wasn't like me at all. I just started to also become quite sensitive to sounds, like, you know, instant messagings, the ping, ping, ping. They started to make me flinch, and I was getting migraines and developed anxiety and depression. And that's when I knew something was not right.
Wow, really interesting. Let's talk about some of this, particularly vertigo. When you mentioned this, both vigorous nodding from Angela and Claire. So, like, is this what is this like? Is there an explanation as to why suddenly vertigo is a phenomena? Is it a commonly known phenomenon of menopause, or
it wasn't? It's now been added to the list. So I started finding out about menopause when I was going through it sort of 2 years ago. And there were 34 symptoms at that point. There's now 74, and vertigo has been added to that. I've had it for the last just over 2 years. So for me, it's not about the freezing, sort of that typical vertigo when you're at heights. For me, it's as if I turn over. So if I could lay down right now and I turned from my left to the right to left is fine, left to right, you would see my eyes doing this. And literally the things are whizzing around the room. So I get dizzy, I fall over sideways, people will see me and think I'm drunk. And it's literally, if I've looked up, looked down or turned, it's the crystals in your ear that move to the wrong place. And therefore your brain is feeling something from that and getting signals from that, but your eyes are seeing something different. So think of if you've been on a boat and really suffered from seasickness, similar to that, where you are, and you literally, you'll walk and you'll go sideways and you'll hit a wall because you think you're going forwards. Your brain tells you you're going right, and yeah, not great.
Yeah. So and Claire, obviously you and I shared a stage, right? And there was this, just to give everyone a bit of context, it was one of these classic, or let's do a panel sort of conversation on stage. Of course, the panel were like ridiculously tall stools, which anybody would struggle to hover on. And sort of me and Claire were there, and Claire just flatly refused to get on the stool that was closest to the edge. And it was like, fair enough, I get it, but it was almost like you knew that was actually quite dangerous, given the fact that you now know of yourself that actually you've got this sense, your balance is, your confidence isn't there with the balance and stuff. So how crazy is this? So I guess from a biological point of view, what we can understand is there are obviously biological changes which just change the something in your ear or whatever your sense of your balance is, and then of course that's going to change all kinds of your relationship with your environment and how comfortable you might be in different places. Go ahead, Claire.
Yeah, I was going to just add to that as well. I mean, Kelly and Angela are probably, and the ladies that are going to come on later, the symptoms do creep up on you. You really don't know that you've got it all going on until you can kind of sit and figure it out. But mine was like itchy skin. I mean, there's the really well-known sort of sweats and like, waking up in the night and having really bad sleep patterns, constantly being disturbed by your own breathing almost. But the itchy skin was something else. It was like, yeah, sleeping with ants. Like it never stopped. And it wasn't even something that you could even just stop thinking about. It would just always be there.
Nuts, isn't it? I have body cream next to the bed now, and I just don't even think about it. As soon as it starts, it's like just slather it on. Don't care where it goes.
Otherwise, Slash has been in the bed with you at night because you literally scratch yourself to bleeding. It can be awful.
I went to my doctor and I said, hey, I've got these itchy welts, help me. And he said to me, they're so tiny, they're microscopic, I can't see anything. And I left feeling like a fool. Goodness.
No, and I think that's probably the thing as well. If you've got, I mean, I was really lucky. I spent sort of 5 minutes on the phone with a doctor, a female elder doctor who'd basically been studying menopause symptoms for quite a while. She put me at ease, and she just sort of said, look, you're presenting on at least 20 of the symptoms that we know of. Just come in, we'll talk to you about medication, and we'll also talk about alternative solutions as well. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that actually it's one thing recognizing where you're at. The next stage is obviously then trying to figure out how you can support yourself through this journey, because it doesn't actually stop. And I know there's quite a real range as well. So maybe that's something that we can talk about today.
My understanding is about 10 years. So from menopause, you've still got sort of 10 years of all of these symptoms. I can see Breeder in the chat. Breeder's a real expert on this with all the knowledge and the details. This is our experiences from here. But a lot of people will say to me, well, how do you know that symptom's down to that? And mine happened during lockdown. So the anxiety and the noise thing that I have to, if you see me walk out of a big room of people, I just need a break. I just can't take it anymore. It's just like, it just builds and builds and builds and gets so much that I need to pop outside. But a lot of the time, the actual medicine for me is this little patch, lasts 3 days, 3.5 days. Yep. But as soon as I forget to put one on, I get eczema here, usually just on my eyelids. It's now migrated in the last couple of months to here and on this bit of nose as well. And literally, as soon as it's on, it goes again. And you just think, wow, it's just ridiculous, some of these details.
All right, a couple of things. Both of you, all of you, I think I've mentioned there's a list of symptoms. Can we share that list? Is that publicly available?
Yeah, I'm just going to put the link in the chat. Lauren Sheeran, she wasn't available today, has done loads of work for us over the last 3 years, especially when it's been around World Menopause Day. So we've created a free course for everyone that's got all of the information in there, as well as sort of what's going on in government and what's happening, and she updates that. And she does a 3-day course for free. I think it's only like half hour each day for people. So I'll get those links in there as well, so people can get this information. It is out there. You just got to find it.
All right, so folks, this is actually quite significant. It's a free training course. I'm going to go on it. So I think everyone needs to. Links in the chat stream. Go ahead and sign up to this. At the same time, can someone do me a favor and just share that link into LinkedIn as well? I think more people who see this and are aware of it, better it is, right? So a lot of this is just ignorance. I'm ignorant of this, and I feel a little bit ashamed.
I think that's
this is
years, and I had no clue. And to Kelly's point, I was sitting on Zoom calls, and through lockdown, similar to Angela, I'd get off Zoom calls and I'd just sit there and I'd cry for half an hour, and I have no idea why. And my entire personality did a U-turn, and I couldn't recognize myself. Sort of 6 months in, I'm thinking, this anxiety and depression isn't me. What's going on? And it wasn't until someone said, oh, how old are you? Have you thought it could be perimenopause? So yeah, it's such a blindsiding event. I think both obviously for women, but then also for men too. I kind of feel like it should also be maybe on the curriculum. So we talk about, hormones and kids, and then we also need to talk about what happens later on in life. So we've got that kind of essential knowledge before it comes up and slaps us.
Claire, was your school like mine, that the boys and the girls were separated off? The girls went off to talk about periods.
Yeah.
And we had probably 2 lessons, maybe 3 lessons over a period of time. For majority of them, it was way too late. For me, it wasn't, but it was like, and again, had no idea. And if we don't talk about it, it's part of life.
Yeah.
Normal. So why don't we just have the conversations, give us the information, let us know what we're facing, so that when these things happen, we don't think we're going nuts or that we've got early onset dementia, because these are things that happen. And it's no surprise. The average age is 51, and I was 51 and a month when I hit menopause. And the average age for suicide in the UK a couple of years ago was 51 for women. It might have come down a little bit because of the lockdown. Unfortunately, the numbers hit hard, didn't they, during that time? But it's the same period of time, and it really doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a consistent theme here. Information's out there, but it seems that you have to go and find it, and you have to be hyper motivated to do that. And typically, that's because you're experiencing the symptoms yourself. Whereas what we've got to do as recruiters, HR people, we can at the very least sort of make that available internally within organizations, let's say, and say, look, here, if you want to learn about this, here's what you need to know. Anybody who's a manager, I think it should be mandatory to know about this. Because if you're managing people, guess what? Some of those people might be going through perimenopause or menopause at some point in your career. You need to know about this. Otherwise, how are you expected to be an effective and support manager if you're ignorant of it? So number one, I think that's one thing immediately we as recruitment and people could do, is to think just in the framework of your own business. Find a way where this resource sits prominently and is accessible to everyone in the organization, but especially at the hiring manager level or anybody who aspires to management, because they are the ones that need to be providing that support. Angela, I hope you don't mind me sharing some information here, because you and I talked also about contraception, didn't we? And we talked about how one of the reasons why women may not be aware of this is, in fact, possibly because they're taking various different types of forms of contraception, which can influence whether you experience symptoms or whatever happens. So I wonder whether you could tell us a little bit more about sort of what the detail is on that.
It'd be interesting to know actually how many women that are going to be talking about it have the Mirena coil, because for me it was just the easiest contraception that there was. I was due to have it out this week, actually. It lasts for 5 years. I found out that it was actually finished in January, which that's 5 years up. So that's got progesterone in it. So you've got the estrogen and the progesterone thing. So no wonder I've been suffering this year without realising that that's there. But of course, with that, you very rarely get periods. And therefore, you don't know. It's like, well, have I finished? Have I not? I finished my periods 2 years ago. I've started again this year a little bit. So I've now got to go and see a gynecologist, because it's like, well, that's not normal. But then there's so many factors to everything. You just don't know what stage you're in. And you certainly don't appreciate, just as the other ladies have said, that this could be perimenopause when you might only be late 30s, early 40s. You're thinking, well, surely that's not me. I'm not old.
I just want to throw something in that, one of the things that I've also learned is what actually causes perimenopause, menopause is actually as women lead towards infertility, as our eggs totally decline, so do our hormone levels. And this is actually what causes us to go off the rails. It's like I described it as like having a bad Wi-Fi connection between the brain and the ovaries. And this is when symptoms start to happen. And as more and more of your hormone levels start to decline, that's when things can get a whole lot worse. So one of the things that, in terms of my own employer, I think, and anyone in general, I think people don't realize when they're changing, when things are going on. And I think if you know people, if you pay attention to your colleagues around you, you can see, hey, that's not like her. What's wrong? Let's have a conversation. And it starts to open up that awareness.
Yeah, I've just noted in the chat, Marissa saying about her hormones reducing, but she thinks her teens got hers.
Isn't it? It's kind of like, it's an obvious thing. I think Adam just mentioned as well. Growing up, there was that moment in time, certainly was for me, where it went from everything was okay to everything never being okay again with my mum. And it was like we were a house full of, there was 3 teenagers all at the same time, as mum hitting her menopause state, and then there was a baby in the house almost as well, sort of a toddler. So the whole thing just kind of collided, and it was like DEFCON 3 all the time. So that was my impression of what later life looked like as a mum. But then you just forget about that, because actually you have your own experiences and you kind of put it to one side. But yeah, to your point, Kelly, as well, the hormone stuff, that's where I started to get a lot more clarity around the physiology and the DNA changes, and also that kind of control over my emotional state. Because for me, I've always been quite practical, quite pragmatic, quite kind of glass is always half full. I'm now able to say that I'm kind of back to that stage, but my glass got empty real quick, really, and wouldn't fill up ever. And I can see that by managing my hormones and thinking about my diet, my exercise regime, all of that has helped me to piece back together. I'm a different version. I'm always going to be a different version of myself, but I've now got a very good understanding of what I need to put into my body and where I need to be in my head in order to have a good quality of life. And I think as well, that conversation with colleagues is an absolute example of that. I've got a really great close network of work friends, girlfriends who are in this boat with me. They'll have different symptoms, they'll have different experiences, but we all talk about it. We all talk about our crazy moments and our, kind of eureka moments at the same time. So I think they're really great pieces of advice.
But also,
all right, Angela, can you deal with this question in the chat, because I think that's relevant to this. Maybe just someone's, I think Meiji said, how do you actually register on this? So I think quite important we
okay, yeah. So
if
you click on that, it's free of charge. You just need your name and email address to put into there, and it will give you a free account. And then what normally happens when people sign up for a free account, we've got 6 free courses, pro bono courses we give to everyone. So the likelihood is you'll get some other ones as well related to recruitment. It's up to you whether you want to look at them or not.
All right, so you've got to set up an account on Recruiting Gym to get access to this, right?
It's in there.
Yeah,
It's all free. It's just your email giving us your details.
Okay. So maybe you give that a go, and then can let us know sort of whether that on board works, and it's fine. Quickly on HRT, everyone. So generally speaking, is that the default sort of solution that doctors typically say, okay, just take this, put the patch on, etc. Shaking the head. Okay, tell us what sort of medically, what not even medically, but what is the what are the prescriptions that the doctors typically provide for people who are suffering these types of symptoms?
Well, I'm sure everyone will pipe in a moment. HRT is actually one of the most recommended. It should be recommended, and unfortunately, as everyone else will say, HRT is actually not really discussed very widely with doctors. Women are actually struggling to be prescribed it. And this is also what causes a lot of issues with women running around with symptoms, not knowing what's happening. They're also being prescribed antidepressants in error, and I'll let the girls also share.
Yeah, I'm with you, Kelly. Initially, one doctor said to me, "Oh, it's because of your depression," and I was like, "No, I work at this level of stress all the time. It's never happened like this. I'd like a second opinion." And then they got a bit antsy, and then it wasn't until I spoke to my second doctor, who was like, "Yeah, they're talking BS. Come and talk about it." But because cancer is in my family, I've not had cancer, but my mum's had cancer. There's a real risk between particularly those that have suffered with breast cancer and have or may carry the breast cancer gene. And that can be HRT, hormone replacement therapy, the patch that Angela just held up, and the progesterone tablets and things like that. I'm on a combination version that can actually exacerbate cancer growth. And so you have to be very, very careful with the additional hormones that you put in your body. There are also a really amazing array of organic supplements that can help boost those hormones that you're losing. But of course, that's private and it's quite cost prohibitive for so many people.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I thought HRT was just like literally given to people, but clearly that's not true.
It's better because unfortunately it's only the last few years that they've gone back into the research. There was research done in the 70s with women that unfortunately were already in there. It was 25 years ago, were already in their 70s. And therefore the high level of breast cancer that came from those people, they were just assumed it was the HRT, but it wasn't. It was the wrong level of people that were given it. You need it in your 50s for it to make a difference, and it's that will help with your bones so that you don't get osteoporosis, help protect your heart. A lot of women that menopause will actually give them heart problems and therefore heart attacks, so it's much more likely. So the research was wrong, and of course as soon as that came out, no one would put any money into research on menopause because they knew it wasn't a winner. No one's going to have HRT because of that. So it was always put off so much, and it's only in the last 3-4 years where they've gone back into the research, done it again with proper people, that they've realised actually no, that wasn't true. And we've had 20-30 years of women going, no, I can't have that because that will give me cancer.
One of the things that I wanted to say is HRT can't improve one's confidence. I think confidence and self-esteem issues are actually one of the biggest impacts of menopause, just because of the confusing changes everyone is going through. Again, you can feel like you're losing your mind because you become really confused, and that's that's one thing that HRT can't help with.
Very interesting, folks. We're going to have to move on because I've realized the time. We need to bring some of the guests on, but I want to thank everyone for sharing their experiences here. Before I let you all go, though, can you give us some guidance that, let's say you've got some experience through it now. Can you give us one word of advice that you might give yourself if you could leap back in time 3 years or whatever prior to the onset of these symptoms? What advice would you give yourself, knowing what you know now? Claire Bush, let's go with you first.
I think put yourself first. Put yourself first. Don't keep giving. Put yourself first. Be selfish.
Yep. So you got to recognize the situation physically, and you can't put everyone else ahead of you. Deal with that first. That's the main thing. Angela, your thoughts on this? Your own advice to yourself?
Educate yourself. I knew nothing whatsoever, never had any conversations about it. The link people were saying working, it was my link and I've already got the course, so I've put the new link. Click it again and it should work for you.
All right, brilliant. And Kelly, what would you say?
I just wanted to say that one of the biggest things for me was actually talking about it, and communication. That's the most important thing. Even if you don't know what's going on, talk about it.
Yeah, really, really important. And this is hopefully what we're trying to do, folks. So thank you all for joining us. Claire Bush, Angela, Raina and Angela, sorry, Angela, Raina, and Kelly May. We're going to stay with us. We're going to bring some other people on to the show. And folks, before we do that, we always do this in the middle of every conversation. Very important we do it because we do have to come off air in due course. If you think this is an interesting conversation and valuable to you, you want to continue it, of course, Brainfood Live should never be a bottleneck to stop that conversation. Make sure you go ahead and connect with other people having this great chat, and then continue that conversation elsewhere off platform or in another webinar you want to do yourself or whatever it is that you think is useful. So take a moment, share your LinkedIn into the chat stream on Crowdcast. If you're watching this on any of the LinkedIn's live streams, share it in the comment thread there, and then just connect with everyone who's done that. And then avail yourself to this thing that Angela sent around, which is a free course to help educate you on menopause. Adam, you've been quiet on that, but I think you've been listening. And what are your thoughts having heard from Claire, Angela, and Kelly there?
Well, I mean, that was a very rich source of learning for me. I didn't know a lot of that, and it was extremely useful to hear everybody's perspectives on that. One thing that I wanted to throw in as a useful source of learning, which people might be surprised about, but it really, really is on subjects like this, is TikTok. It is rammed with people talking about this and giving, their real life stories, and for actually everything that is health and well-being related, it's a great source of learning more and quickly.
Yep. Oh no, we've lost Breeder. Don't worry, Breeder. If you're still back, let us know. We'll drop you back into this chat. Definitely want to get you on the show and have a conversation on it. But yeah, I think avail yourself to information. I think the reason why TikTok is powerful because it is basically immediately accessible. There's someone talking about it right there. It's not a case where you have to swim through lots of internet to figure out what's going on. So do check it out, and of course, just keep speaking to people in the community. Right, we're going to bring some more people on. People are very patient. Jenny Candy is here. Let me see if I can bring Jenny on. I've even forgotten the order in which. Actually, I don't know how to bring Jennifer on. Jenny, if you're here, let me know because there's no Jennifer that I can identify.
There is a.
Marissa.
I think user.
Let's bring Marissa on.
I think user/DEEA is somebody to bring on.
How on earth is that even a name? If that's you, Jennifer Candy user, let me know. And we'll do that. Someone's wanted to come on screen. Who's this? Can't even read this properly. Oh, it is user. I think it is. All right, we'll take a risk. Let's go on here. I think I need to bring on as Marissa. Wonderful. Marissa, while so the people come on, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What is you do?
Sure. My name is Marissa Estes, and I'm the Talent Acquisition Manager with Thrive America, and I'm in menopause.
Okay, wonderful to have you on the show. There's Jennifer Candy. You are user DEA. How did that happen, Jennifer?
I don't know because it says Jennifer Candy on my side, so not sure. But hi, everybody.
It must be because you are like a very early user of Crowdcast, I think.
No,
and you
not.
might have just migrated this on. Okay, Jennifer, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Sure. Jennifer Candy, and I'm the Global Director of TA Strategy and Performance at Cargill.
Great, and great to have you both onto the show. I think the reason, sort of why we want to talk about it is because we've had commentary from people who maybe are working more on the consultancy side or whatnot, but you two are working as leaders of TA departments and also have gone through or are going through this experience. Can you kind of give us the perspective from both an individual going through it and also from the company perspective? Like, did you feel that there was like a structure to help, or have you been inspired to put something together to help? What's the scenario for you here? Let's go with you first, Marissa.
Well, my first experience was just talking with a coworker. I am fairly new to my organization, and I partnered up immediately with the director of talent acquisition who had already gone through or currently is going through menopause. And we just started talking and sharing information. I know the previous guests were talking about the lack of information, and that's what I found. I started to have to dig and dig and dig. And once I talked to her, I just started going down rabbit holes and getting answers and finding solutions. And she recommended HRT, and that's been a game changer for me.
It's a very common pattern, isn't it? People don't have the information until actually the situation's there, and you have to go and. I've just started thinking, like, people, let's say working in remote, that must be even harder, because you might not have the relationships, or you might not have the trust factor with people that that you've never seen before. So that kind of exacerbates that problem. Jennifer, tell us a little bit about your situation there.
Well, let's see. I've been going through it for about 7 years. So it's been quite some time, but it's really spiked in the past, I'd say 3. But I now know why as of this past Monday. And actually, I would say, if, as a bit of advice, if people could get their bloods checked, so you do have to be your own advocate, right? So demand to get your bloods checked for all of your hormones and other things, because when I did that, what I've caught is my thyroid hormone is really bad. So I've just been diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disorder of your thyroid, which oddly presents with almost every single symptom mirrors menopause. So I'm going, wow, I'm not crazy. I thought I'd had like the worst menopause of anybody in my whole life, right? So it's been a double whammy. So it will be interesting to see, once the meds start kicking in. I'm only on day 3, so, it's going to take a while. And once I get to the right dosage, what remains. So they'll be able to see what truly has been menopause and what is actually, the thyroid disorder. But having read more on that, it's not so uncommon for menopause and because your hormones are already out of whack, to throw the other ones out of whack as well. So it is something for people to check. Just word to the wise, because I'll tell you, my doctor said I should have been on medicine for probably the past 10 to 15 years.
It's crazy to me that this is misdiagnoses, or kind of almost a dismissal of a minimization of symptoms and so on. I think Kelly was mentioning. I'm kind of astonished by that, because surely we know enough by now that this is a not an aberrant phenomena. It's not like it says, oh, there's a small percentage of people that go through menopause. No, it's like 50% of people guaranteed to go through this. So why is the medical profession just simply more aware, more kind of understanding of it? That is a puzzlement for me. I don't quite get it. But yeah, that just leads us down a rabbit hole, maybe. I don't know. Okay. So all of this is happening. How do you continue kind of performing in your highly stressed jobs in this circumstance? It strikes me that that's also something. When I'm physically bad, I literally stop working, and I mean 2 drinks, right? So if I have 2 drinks last night, the next day I ain't doing anything, as I feel sorry for myself and I'm eating kebabs. That's it. So if you're going through a persistent sort of scenario where your feeling is all over the place, your trust in your body's all over the place, how can you continue to perform in your role? I mean, did you develop techniques to do this, or did you did? Tell us about that, Jennifer.
Lots. So brain fog is a big one for me. That really hasn't been mentioned yet, but if I remember your name, it's a good day, honestly. So for me, I mean, I constantly have OneNote open. I make sure that I'm typing words just to glance at in case I'm going to forget halfway through on what I'm saying. Just simple notes. So even when I went into the doctor, I had all my symptoms written down so I didn't forget. I had any of the supplements because I knew I'd walk in and forget. So you just develop a lot of these coping strategies. But but yeah, it has impacted my performance. I'll be completely honest with you. I have had, I think it's more inconsistencies. So I used to be somebody with lots of confidence and high energy, or at least portrayed myself as having high energy. It's, some days you're not yourself. So that has impacted me. I've got to be just really organized now. And some days, honestly, working from home for me has saved me because, working for an American company, I default to the late hours. So some days I've had to go back to bed in the morning, right, and start at about 11. Yeah, so managing with the kids, and it's not easy. But women are kind of a different breed, right? Keep calm and carry on. So somehow we get through it.
How about your thoughts, Marissa? Like, how did you deal with it, particularly when there wasn't a solution from a palliative solution from the medical services, etc. Like in that sort of period of time in between, what sort of techniques did you develop?
I can echo everything Jennifer said, like the brain fog that had not been brought up before, but that is like, there's a notebook here because I'm constantly having to write things down, even for this call, what I wanted to say, because I knew in the middle of my thought, I'd forget. So that's been one thing that I've had to do. I tried to do it electronically, and I think I have Google Keep Notes open and the paper and pencil in case have a backup for my backup. So that's been helpful, but like Jennifer said, I do feel like I'm not performing at my highest. And I'm admitting that, but I'm trying everything I can to stay organized and stay and keep performing the best of my ability. But working from home has also been helpful. Like she said, I have 2 children. I am able to have flexible hours when I'm not feeling the best. I can log on later at night or earlier in the morning. That has been very helpful. But I am going through this by myself remotely. But I'm reaching out to my coworkers the best that I can to try to find that network of people to talk to who maybe have already gone through it and can offer some advice. Like I said previously, the director that I spoke with, she's had a great impact on me as I've gone through this. I'm asking my mom, and my mom doesn't remember, what she experienced. It was way different for her. So having someone that I work with who has gone through it and who can offer tips and tricks on staying focused and staying in the game has been a godsend. Another thing for me, I had heart palpitations. No one has mentioned that. Went to a cardiologist. You're fine. I wore a monitor for 30 days. You're fine. Never was menopause mentioned. And then when I got on HRT, I haven't had a heart palpitation since. And I've only been on it for 3 months, but I'm telling you, those were scary. And it is a symptom of menopause. So that's happened to me on like Zoom calls with my boss, and I'll stop and he'll say, "What's the matter?" Just my heart, But since HRT, that has not happened. So that's been very helpful for me.
I wonder if your mom
crazy.
didn't remember. I wonder if your mom didn't remember because when she went through it, it wasn't really talked about very much, and she was kind of just expected to get on with it, and that type of thing.
Yeah, and when I mentioned to her that I was going to start HRT, she just said, well, why would you do that? What's that about? That wasn't an option for me. Tell me more. Even though she's passed. But yeah, it wasn't talked about. You just had to grin and bear it and just fan yourself and move on. And that, it just wasn't a thing, unfortunately.
A quick one in terms of, because I want to shift the conversation now to what employers could do or what companies can do to better support. I think both of you kind of had this experience. It sounds like there wasn't a huge amount of structural sort of things in place in that organization. If you could rework it and you could say, right, we need to think about this, and let's create a system that would be more supportive to people going through these life changes. What would that look like in your opinion?
I'd start a group. We have groups for all different types of people to join, whether you're a women's organization or a group for Pacific Americans. I mean, we've got all kind of groups in our organization. There's no menopause group, so I would start a group where perimenopausal and menopausal women can get together and talk about what they're experiencing, and then bring suggestions to the company or the organization on how they can best support those women.
Yeah, so firstly, some sort of resource group internally that may exist outside of the structure of the business, but it's there, it's available. There's other people that have either gone through it with experience or whatnot, just to provide that sense of, look, if you don't know what's going on, just go here first, and that's your first step. Easy to do, everyone, isn't it, folks? I don't see why that shouldn't happen. Get cracking with that. Jennifer, your thoughts on what might be done outside of maybe the group? Is there anything else that you'd suggest?
Yeah, that was definitely going to be one of mine as well. What I'd also say is something around, manager training. I think we've mentioned a bit on that, but also, how do you address then performance? So coming at it rather than, I guess, punitively, how do you support somebody? So, catching where they're inconsistent and providing levers of support during that time. So not to say, oh, you don't need to perform anymore. That doesn't work. But I don't know what that looks like, but I think we need to be talking about that. Definitely important. We are launching, I was just told this yesterday, actually, support with a program partnership with Adora, which I had not heard of, but it will have app with chatbot functionality with NHS doctors and nurses. They can prescribe HRT on the fly for you. So a bunch of different resources that will be coming, but I think a program like that is just the basics. In addition, I think we need to look at the benefits to support it. Our BUPA, at least for us, you can't claim and go private for menopause, which to me is absolutely ludicrous. But when I did ask around that, apparently the cost was so prohibitive, it was about $2,000 per employee. So, I mean, how can we make that more accessible as well, to say, oh, menopause, and a lot of times pregnancy, right? The two things that hit women, menopause and pregnancy, not covered typically by our medical. So to me, there's a problem with that.
Yeah, and it strikes me that probably people have never thought about this as a thing that a company should provide some structure to. And if Adam, I mean, again, we don't want to bring in sort of different conversations, but I've also had some conversations where people have said it's not the company's responsibility.
Well, if the company wants you to perform well, right? It can make a huge difference on your performance. So to me, things that, we're willing to spend tons of money on learning and development, right, to improve performance. Well, my gosh, if you're going through something that could improve your performance, is the $2,000 worth it?
Not only that, Jenny, but it's also like retention as well. You can imagine there's a lot of women that actually do decide, okay, listen, what did Claire say? She needs to put herself first. That might mean if there's no support, you leave the job, and then that intermittency then can make it very difficult for you to go back at the same level, if at all. So I think there's a huge amount of labor lost simply because we haven't provided that support. So I think the argument is pretty strong, but there is commentary still from the outside to say, look, personal problem, deal with it. So that line of argument does exist in this conversation. Adam, I think you want to say something, man.
Yeah. Just to be clear, the person who the person Hung's talking about, somebody said to me they queried the topic of this particular brain food subject, and the reason for it was because they thought that the subject really was, what are the accommodations we need to make for menopause within a recruitment process for potential candidates? And the question was, well, like, how far do you go with this? Do you go with it like endometriosis and like all sorts of other things? You could go, and that person who was a female, her point was, we need personalized experiences through a recruitment process, and rather than we don't need. She said we don't need a menopause policy. What we need is like some common sense, practical accommodations for people, regardless of their health and well-being requirements. But we haven't really been talking about like what accommodations in talent acquisition.
Yeah, I do remember that conversation as well. And by the way, we're not flaming anybody here. I think we need to actually be very welcoming to all sorts of opinions. Otherwise, we can't actually surface this out. And yeah, I think the opinion there was, look, what does accommodation look like, practically speaking, from an organization perspective, and how does it actually look like, particularly as you mentioned on performance? Let's say, like, what are you meant to do with that? Are we meant to handicap? Like, do you handicap people that aren't going through menopause, for instance, to equalize it? I don't know. It seems to me we need to put effort and thought into it, but it's not obvious sort of what the policy is. Folks, we're running massively out of time. Jennifer, I think you do want to say something, so go ahead. No?
No, not really. I think I've said it all in the chat as well, but yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head at any rate with the people, either women leaving the workforce or tailoring back on leadership roles, taking less stressful jobs. And if we're trying to promote women into leadership, it's kind of counterproductive. So it is a massive issue.
Yeah,
they nailed that.
We talk about diversity at C-level, executive level, etc. Yet I've never actually heard menopause mentioned as a factor, or lack of menopause support, should I say, as a factor for that lack of diversity at leadership. But it seems to me pretty clearly that those things might in fact be contributing to each other. So okay, folks, we have to bring on some more guests. Jennifer and Marissa, thanks for joining us. And thank you very much for sharing your experiences, by the way. I think this is helping people. So I do thank you very much for doing that. Adam, I hope you're staying with us, or do you need to go? If you need to go, you need to go. But
I'm staying. I need to learn.
Yeah, I think so. This is important. Let's bring on Sally and Lou. I want to bring you on as well. Thank you for being very patient. The reason why I organize it this way, by the way, is that the next couple of guests I want to bring on have actually implemented policies. So we're talking about, okay, what do we do about it? Well, it seems that some companies or some employers, some individuals have actually got some sort of experience. So let's. Breeda's here. I'm going to invite her anyway in case she's back off her call. But let's say hello to Sally. Sally, welcome to the show. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Sure. I presume you can hear me.
Yeah.
So my name's Sally Hyam. I sit over here in Basel, Switzerland, and there's two of me. That's not very pleasant. I head up talent attraction for Lonza on a global level, but I think, like a lot of us, I went through a personal. Clearly, I'm in the perimenopause. Probably took it to a whole nother level because I went on a course through the KCA, which then got me learning, absorbing, understanding, and then thinking, how can we actually bring this into the workplace as well?
Fantastic. And I'm going to try and remove one of those Sallys, but yes, I wonder, should I just try and get rid of one of them? It should be all right. The other one should stay. Oh God, no. Sorry, I didn't. This is exactly what I didn't want to have happen, and I actually did it. So let's re-invite Sally. Whilst we're doing that, we've got Lou here. Lou, welcome to the show. Thanks for being patient with us. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What did you do?
Yeah, so I actually work for Specsavers in our events department, but I head up and co-chair with a colleague of mine our menopause colleague network, which is called Menotalk, been in existence now for about 3.5 years. So yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. And Lou, you contributed to one of the early conversations we had on LinkedIn on this, and you described actually there are companies that have rolled out implemented policies and what have you. So can you tell us a little bit about the context of this? Like, how did it happen? How did it emerge? And what's the content of the policy?
So it happened pretty much the same as it probably does anywhere, which is two women one day sat down and said, "Oh my God, my menopause is horrific. Have you experienced it?" And those two women were myself and Caroline. And as part of that conversation, we both kind of went, you know what, we employ 2,000 people in our support office alone in the UK. We can't be the only women that are having issues here. And one of my challenges, the biggest challenge I faced, apart from understanding myself what was wrong with me, was actually having to educate my own line manager, who was male, early 50s, younger wife, so probably gives a bit of context about why he hadn't really experienced anything menopause related. And just the awkwardness, the embarrassment, the difficulty in sort of having to educate my own manager about what I was experiencing, because quite frankly, I was underperforming to all intents and purposes from what he was seeing compared to my usual standard. So I was dealing with all the emotions and the confusion around what I was going through physically and also, you know, psychological changes as well. And also had to have this additional responsibility of awkwardly explaining to him what I was going through and why I just simply wasn't myself anymore. And we just kind of both said, hang on a minute, nobody else should go through this. Nobody should feel so awkward and uncomfortable. So let's help. And Caroline works in our L&D department. So she was perfectly placed to help pull some training together. We work with a company called HemPicked, who have recently accredited as Menopause in the Workplace accredited. And 3.5 years later, we've got menopause policies in place, menstruation policies in place. We've introduced women's sanitary products in some of our support office toilets, so women don't have that awkward moment of needing to access something as in an emergency. We've held panel sessions with some of our very senior leaders, female and male, and we've just opened the conversation. We've been very, very honest. We've just talked about it, and there's a portion of people that still feel a little bit uncomfortable. But I would say for the most part now, our business is actually quite comfortable with the word menopause and what it means. And that's really what we set out to do from the very beginning.
Really, really good. Go ahead, Adam.
You know, it's so good that subjects are no longer taboo, or they're certainly becoming less taboo. There's not that many taboo subjects anymore. But it's really great that companies like yours are doing what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been, you know, struggled. There've been times where it's been a big education for a lot of people, but we started with the feeling that the best thing we could do was just be really honest and open and just keep on facing into it and just keep going. And we've got over nearly 400 members to our group now. We hold regular, you know, sessions and updates and regularly update our training, and we've got really good engagement. We've got other networks that exist within our business as well. We work with them very closely. We've got an ethnic minority network that we're working with now, because women of different cultures go through different experiences of menopause. Typically, Black women tend to go through menopause a little bit later than white women do, things like that. We've got a network that supports LGBTQ+. We've got some transgender women in our business that we've also supported. It's a very broad topic, and I think that's the first thing that really hit me when I had to educate my line manager. It's to filter it into one small thing to explain to him what I was going through was incredibly stressful and hard.
No, thank you for telling us that story. And again, it's small starts, wasn't it, Lou? It was like just you getting together with one other person in business, and then you look at what's happening down the line. Looks like it's policy changes, significant a cultural change, I would say. Did I not see in your chat that, you know, there's significant numbers of people who are actually part of the group, including men, which is great to see. So yeah, this is how cultural change happens. Small starts, folks. You don't have to, you know, try and swallow the ocean in one big gulp. So even starting a group and making sure people are aware of that, then that may be a good start for 10. Sally, go to you on this. From your training on self-education, What sort of things do you think an employer can do, like practically do, to start, doing this cultural change and getting to a place where, we are being truly inclusive? We can't just deny or ignore this biological phenomena. It's like very normal, predictable phenomena. So why aren't we shaping our businesses to accommodate for this? How would you recommend companies get started?
No, and I think the culture piece, I think, is an interesting one as well, because for global organizations, I think you also have to appreciate in some cultures you don't talk about periods. Women don't like talking about things like that. So, or actually, I forget that some language don't actually have a word for menopause in certain languages. So I think depending on where you are as a company footprint wise, I think, just sort of try and understand some of that. So for me, so just to share on a personal thing, my journey was Singapore and Switzerland. So I think there's a lot on here from the UK, and hearing bits about the NHS and HRT. For me, mine's been I suppose an international kind of experience from that point of view. But what can employers do? I think there's a couple of things, I think, which is great hearing all of these. Is it a policy? Is it training? Is it that? I think something else to perhaps add, it's a natural, it's not an illness. This is a natural life event. So I think something that organisations need to think about is absenteeism. So if someone is taking a day for the menopause, what is this noted as? Are they then off sick? Well, this isn't something that you're sick. It's like we said, it's not an illness. So I think organisations perhaps need to look at, and that's perhaps a starting point, looking at absenteeism for particular demographic groups in particular geographies, to perhaps understand the demographic makeup of their workplace, I think is one thing. Talking about it and hearing ERGs and things is great, definitely. And that's something that I've started within my organisation. But I think that then goes hand in hand. I think Jennifer was talking about it, training. People need to then be comfortable having conversations, either male, female, from a manager, team member point of view. Like I think Louise said, some don't want to talk about it. So I think you've sort of got a double-edged sword, in the sense of employers want to start supporting and helping. And is it workplace adjustments, which is something that I saw in the chat? What does that become? Which is a bit like neurodiverse. What workplace adjustments? Or do you have employee passport that you take from, if your manager changes, if you're neurodiverse, you need an adjustment. If you're menopausal, you might want to work at home. So there's all sorts of things, employers, which can sound quite daunting. But for me, starting is something. For us, I sit on, we've got a gender diversity council for a lot of them, the UN goals, so gender diversity. I shared on that, menopause in the workplace, my personal journey, what I'd learned through the course. What is it? How do we start talking about this? I held a virtual menopause cafe on International Women's Day. I never knew this day existed. But again, when you're on this train, you then find all of this great stuff out. On that, I held a mentee. What do we want? What do we want as an organisation? How can we support? I think ERG is fabulous. You can create teams, you can put resources in there. Training, do you have menopause ambassadors, menopause warriors, whatever you want to call them? Opening up safe spaces. I personally would say perhaps men only sessions as well. I mean, there is actually the men menopause, andropause. So there is, our hormones go off a cliff, men's go off slower and later, but again, I think it directly affects us, but indirectly will affect males. Their partner might be having the hot sweats, so therefore the male is not sleeping and therefore not functioning. So indirectly, it will affect potentially everybody. So there's lots that I think people could think about, do, support, talk, share, whatever that might be. So I think it's starting the journey. But does this then sit in well-being? Is it HR? Because, do you just think, I just want to talk about the menopause, this perhaps should be a midlife or just a well-being? We talk about mental health. We've talked about, the different sort of symptoms. I get the brain fog, I've got the heart palpitations, I've also got osteopenia. It was a bone density scan that highlighted my sort of start for me understanding what this roller coaster that's sort of coming your way, what it actually means. So hopefully that wasn't too long-winded, but hopefully that sort of gave a bit of information that can sort of, share where you start.
No, Sally, not long at all. In fact, I thought it actually underlines what needs to happen, because I think everyone can simply, the one like very positive thing I'm taking from all of this conversation is it seems that the most obvious thing that we can do, almost anyone can do, which is to elevate the conversation so it becomes much more public, and it's not closed doors so people can't feel as if they can't speak to it, and self-educate, reach out to things that's out there, even if you're affected or not. This is men, women, whoever it is. Go on these courses and get the understanding. And thirdly, create some sort of public space within the business or within the organization where this is the focus. And that is the place where people who haven't self-taught or they haven't gone off on their own initiative in any way, they can see a support very clearly being there, and that's available if they should need it. And it seems that can kind of percolate across across an organization, so that change happens down the track. So rather than expecting some top level strategy, it can happen from grassroots, I guess.
I think as well. Oh,
sorry, Sally, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think you'd mentioned something, and Adam, you mentioned it about the the retirement age. Women are living, everybody's living longer. I think it's something like 1 in 4 in the UK will live till they're 100. So if you think of females, we potentially are going to have half of our life hormonal. We're going to be living longer. We're going to be working longer. So, when I heard you talking about sort of how you can, there's loads of facts out there, that I think I put something in there about, women are leaving because they've lost their confidence. So you are losing such, the knowledge, but also when they're taking off these days because they don't know what to say, they're embarrassed to say something. How is it documented? The numbers of hours that are then lost through productivity. I think, you can bring stats and figures to employers if you feel you need to justify or help support your mission as to why support needs to be, there or at least talked about. But we are living longer. This is not going away. So, we're in an aging population, the generations, etc. So yeah,
very important point. I think next year, or in the next couple of years, it's going to be the first time where there's going to be 5 generations of workers together in a single business.
You know what? 2040, 7 hung. In 2040, there will be 7 generations in the workplace.
That's crazy. Yeah, and we've optimized for this type of person here, but in fact we need to really have work that's suitable for all age groups and all life stages. Otherwise, you're going to have this constant talent problem because you're just trying to squeeze everyone into this optimal, when in fact we need to expand the types of people that are able to work in our business and thrive in our business. And that means modulating the work. It means the work's got to change. You've got to have age appropriate work. If I'm 85 years old, I may still be able to do some work positively for the organization, but I'll be a different type of work to when I'm 25. So that seems to me very obvious, but we don't change the job. The job is not sensitive to the age or the life stage of the person. We just think, it's a job. So there's lots of things we can do. Folks, we are well over time, so we have to kind of put it to an end here. Although it isn't an end, with loads of things we haven't talked about. We haven't talked about the early onset menopause. We haven't talked about hysterectomies, which I think can trigger this is the medical intervention, which can kind of create a situation where obviously hormones drop as well. We haven't talked about, Emily, thank you, you've mentioned it. We should probably do that as a show next year. And we haven't talked about what men should do, because I think a lot of us are here looking at this and learning, and I'm very encouraged to see a lot of men in the commentary as well. But I think there's an element where we feel we kind of want to learn, which is right. We shouldn't be taking the lead on this. But at the same time, like, what is the most positive thing we can do? It's not clear. And I think sometimes when there's that ambiguity, we kind of just like scoot across it. So maybe that's another conversation that we need to have another time. But we have to leave it here. Everyone's got weekends to get on with. So thank you very much, Sally, for joining us. Lou, wonderful to see your example. Thank you for joining us as well. And Breeder, sorry we weren't able to bring you on. I've probably forgotten other people as well. That's just Hung-Lee's brain fog, got nothing to do with menopause. It's just my brain simply doesn't work as it should. Anyway, folks, we're out. We're going to be starting next week into a 4-part series, which is look back on the year. We're going to review 2023 on different topics. We're going to squeeze in 12 topics in 4 episodes. And next week, we're going to be talking about AI, DE&I, and work tech investment. So what has happened in these 3 domains over the last 12 months? We're going to timeline it, review it, get experts in to talk about it. Make sure you sign up for that episode. Follow the channel if you enjoy this kind of conversation. We're nearly towards the end of the year, folks. Thanks for being with us. Hope you've enjoyed this amazing show. I've absolutely learned a ton. Have a good weekend, everyone. See you next time. Cool.
That was an intensive learning crash course in what it's all about.
What didn't I know? There was a revelation I didn't know. I didn't know HRT was not like default. For some reason I thought that was get on HRT, but it seems that it's hard to get, and it's not also like there's no medical consensus. It seems like there's a sense that it might actually be harmful. So yeah, I didn't know that actually. So I need to know more of this.
I didn't know any of it really.
Yeah, crazy. Anyway, we have resources.
I posted in the chat. I look back at my relationship with my mom with a lot of regret. You know, when I was a teenager, my mom would have been going through this, and I was not empathetic in any way because I didn't know anything about it. I was just a twat. So, you know, I was just a completely selfish teenager.
Adam, you and I, similar age. I think the same. I'm spooling back now as to the worst period I had with my mum. I've got a great relationship with her now. Worst period. I was the wrong age. She was at the wrong time. You know, it's like you're 13, 14, whatever age it is, and she's gone through this in middle of divorce as well. You know what I mean? Awful.
I mean, one thing is I know for a fact, and this is great, is that when that, you know, when that is something in my house, I know that my kids will understand it because we'll talk about it, and it'll be, you know, because there's health related things that we have talked about, you know, really openly, and so it's just like taboo subjects that have to be important. They can't be in the dark anymore.
Yeah, and it's crazy we've hyped this off. It should be in the education system. All biological changes should be in there. It's just like we know the information, so why are we blocking people off from it? It's crazy.
Yeah, be kind to your mum. It's her first time on this earth too. Unfortunately, I didn't really think about that much until she was gone. To be honest, so we got to deal with that shit.
Yep, indeed, mate.
Anyway,
all right, listen.
Can't have a time again, but what you can do is learn for the future.
Exactly. Look forward, man. That's it. Right, cool. What are you doing this weekend, mate? Anything interesting?
Glasgow Warriors tomorrow night against Ulster. I'm gonna be babysitting my kids tomorrow afternoon because my wife's going to some lunch. And other than that, just try and do a bit of exercise and try and do a bit of building a company. You?
Good stuff. Yeah, I'm going to just chill out. I've got loads to do. I'm well behind and I'm all over the place. So I'm going to use this weekend to really get my ducks in order, basically. So yeah, all good. All right, listen, I'll let you go. Thanks for hanging on, Adam.
Cheers.
I'll see you next week, okay?
Yeah, bye.